Episode 101. What are we going to talk about this evening? Well, we're going to talk about the Rugby World Cup warm-ups. We'll also stop in on Shoot Shield and let you know what's happening in the finals series there. And we might reference a few other things as well as the other sort of hot topics in rugby that are going around this weekend. But I promise you, we will not spend the full hour talking about consistency. We'll try not to anyway. Hi, I'm Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul, your best place for predictions and opinion. And joining me to go through all of the action that we've had from the weekend and hot topics here is Ashwin. How are you doing, sir?
I'm sleepy.
You're sleepy, yes, I know you're sleepy.
Let's get something exciting, interesting to talk about, and that'll keep me awake.
Exciting and interesting to talk about. What about Shoot Shield then?
Yeah, that was not a good one to start with. We needed our friend from New South Wales to talk on that one.
We do. We need Hugh here to help us with that one.
Hugh, yeah.
Hugh will be giving me a preview and predictions for the second round of the finals. I believe it's probably semi-finals now, where we'll have Eastwood facing Warringah, or however you say that, and Sydney University against the Northern Suburbs. I'm behind Sydney University. They've been going well so far. They've got the home tie there. So yes, that is going to be my. That's wrong with that one. I'm not even going to bother to ask Arsene because he has absolutely no idea about Shoot Shield matters. But as I say, DrivingMaul.com for that. Hugh will be giving me his previews to that. So thank you, Hugh, who has been an absolute superstar for the Shoot Shield this year. But moving on. So where do we start? We've had the Rugby Championship, we've had the Pacific Nations Cup, and we've had the I've gone blank, and then the European Rugby World Cup warm-up games as well. We have the All Blacks edition tomorrow night where we'll go into in-depth the whole hour, half an hour about Bledisloe Cup 1 and half an hour about Bledisloe Cup 2. We might allow 2 minutes about Black Ferns game as well. But that'll be all tomorrow night. But as we've got Joshua on here, and he is so over the moon about how the Wallabies have done, let's at least talk about the Wallabies from the Bledisloe Cup. We'll leave the All Blacks out, say, until tomorrow night. But the Wallabies, Arsene, what do you think of them at the weekend?
That's a different Wallabies team than what we've seen previously, isn't it? I mean, we're seeing, I was thinking about it, and you've seen glimpses of that sort of play, even against South Africa in South Africa in the Rugby Championship. There was moments when they had that sort of play in that first half that I saw against South Africa, but that was 80 minutes. And, there's obviously you'll talk about elements of the game tomorrow, but, I don't think that the red card would have made a difference, tell you the truth. I think they were on fire. Everything was working for them. They were dominant at the breakdown and the collisions. So I don't think that the red card would have made a difference. They were the better team on the day. Yeah, basically. I don't really much more to say than that.
Yeah, I think some things I think that Australia did really well was their ball retention was fantastic. And the way that they kicked as well. They didn't feed that back three that the potent counter-attacking that the All Blacks have, so they did that very well. With Nick White up in the line, they drew New Zealand into trying lots of chips over that didn't work because he wasn't sweeping. They ball retention was fantastic. As you say, they even in that first half they won that 13-12. They had the upper hand, and they were definitely the better. They were the better side. I think so. A couple of things we've seen here. Because I've been listening to a couple of Australian podcasts today, and I said we're just going to talk from the Wallabies position. We'll go in depth with All Blacks tomorrow night. Is two things. One is they've got a bigger pack than they've had for a long time, so that's been they're getting over that gain line much more. And secondly, instead of playing a Karevi, Kurandrani, and then having Folau out the back, hence no playmakers. To go from that to Karevi, James O'Connor, who's a playmaker, Kurtley Beale, who's a playmaker. Suddenly you've got lots of players who can make things happen. You don't know quite so clearly what's going to happen. It's not with Karevi Kurandrani, you know what's happening. The only question is, can you stop it? But they asked a lot more questions, and I think, as you say, that's not a side we've seen from Australia previously.
Yeah, look, absolutely. As you say, there was just the players stepping up. I mean, I don't think there was any commentator, even in Australia, that could understand the selection of Nick White at halfback.
Yep.
Nick White. Yep.
Nick White. Yep.
At halfback. But geez, just came up. He went, talked up rocks, and he came up diamonds. So but to me, to tell you the truth, although the he was magic behind the scrum and behind the rucks, and that is Karevi, I thought was actually that was the player of the match for me in terms of for the Australians, obviously even for the game really because they won. But it was Karevi that for me was the player of the game. He was the one that sort of really at times he made good choices. He went forward, and he went forward. Obviously, there's the classic. They're talking about the Jonah moment over Beauden Barrett. He's the one that I thought was actually the player of the match for me out of the Australians.
Yeah, he played very well. It was kind of interesting to see. The reason he was out in that wing was because Koroibete, who was normally in that position, was coming in and playing a lot around the ruck, which was interesting. It was interesting to see how they switched around and how Koroibete got much more involved in this game than we've seen him before. That meant that Karevi could be out on the wing there to run over Beauden Barrett. So yes, there was that was a big thing. One thing I will say about next weekend is what the Rugby report card. There was a suggestion on there that actually Australia would be happier to win the Bledisloe Cup than they would be to win the Rugby World Cup. And that's what it's been a long time between drinks, as a lot of tweeters have said. But yeah, I put a little poll out there, and the poll came back slightly for the Rugby World Cup, but not massively,
not by much.
But not by much, no.
Yeah, look, I mean, the Bledisloe holds a lot of sort of prestige to it. I think it's the way that the competition between the two nations has sort of over the years sort of just progressed, and now with the All Blacks having held it for so long, and I mean the reverse was actually true for quite a while. Obviously not to this extent, but the All Blacks actually went for quite a few years without holding the Bledisloe as well. When around the times when John Eales was playing towards the end of his career, sort of thing. So it's something that seems to hold a lot of value between the two nations. You can look at the Rugby Championship and that sort of thing, but because I think the constant changes in the playing conditions, it really hasn't developed into must win the Rugby Championship, sort of type thing. So I think the Bledisloe is, revered, and the teams want to hold it and put the 18 cans of beer or whatever it is in there. So yes, the why is the refs inconsistency the red card? Sonny Williams, this one, both the same accident, but look, the World Rugby has tried to improve consistency in this area by creating this lovely easy flow chart that tells you that says, right, if this happens, this is the outcome. The problem is, at the end of all that, it then has a caveat of you're allowed to downgrade for mitigating circumstances, which means you have this whole flow chart, and then you say at the end of it, well, yes, that's a starting point, you can change it if you like. Which means, we're going to end up with inconsistency all the time, unfortunately. Oh no, I don't. I'm going to disagree with you, Paul. I don't think that's the issue. I think that's absolutely the chart is quite easy to work, and I think it's actually logical. You start off at that incident there. You start off at a red card, and then you look at if there are mitigating circumstances. It's no different to the after the game judiciary process as well. So you look at that. It's the red card incident that they're looking at. What's the mitigating circumstances? Okay, Hooper's going down on the tackle. Yep. So, yes, Scott Barrett has got an arm out and he's trying to tackle him, but because Hooper's gone down, he sort of missed and therefore he's made contact to the head. All right, we'll downgrade that to the yellow. In this situation, the arm isn't anywhere near wrapping. No. So you can say it doesn't matter that Hooper's sort of ducked or in a half-crouched position or anything like that. The fact is that you actually still maintained a poor position, a dangerous position, and the only thing that you're ever going to do is use your shoulder, which is illegal, and then you've gone and made contact to the head with force, So therefore, the red card stays. So I don't have an issue with that. The issue was the consistency throughout the game. And, I mean, obviously we've seen it. I mean, I'll take the Fox Sport ones over the New Zealand Herald ones because Fox Sport, highlighted through a tweet as well. It's like, well, here's I think it was Lock and Tui going into a ruck, exactly the same motion setup as Scott Barrett, exactly the same contact on somebody's head. And that's the problem, is the fact is that, hang on, somebody else has done exactly, and not even slightly differently, exactly the same thing, and they don't even get a penalty. It's not even looked at. Nobody's noticed it, and that's the problem.
Yeah, there is this piece that it's looked at from a tackling point of view, but from a clear out point of view, or from a carrying the ball into somebody point of view, or blocking even player point of view, such as the Curtly Beale one, it's not looked at. And that's not a Australia thing. That's how referees look at it across all of them.
I just sort of think, is it just being missed?
Eddie Jones had the same questions about some of the stuff that happened in the England game as well. The red card is the right call, but did Hooper have an HIA? Obviously, the HIA piece wouldn't impact whether he should have a red card or not. But the HIA is if they think someone has been concussed. I don't think there was any suggestion that he at any time lost any kind of faculties. He looked fine. He wasn't. He didn't look concussed at any point, which is why I think they didn't go for the HIA.
Yeah, the only thing you could say on that situation in terms of the HIA, no, there was no HIA requirement other than the screaming like a soccer player when he got collected, which drew the attention of the referee to blow it up instantaneously and not even play advantage.
Yep. So that's all we're going to do. Talk about that. So we've got a whole hour of All Blacks talk tomorrow night. So yes, next one up then, I guess, the Rugby Championship. First off, congratulations to South Africa for winning the Rugby Championship with 2 wins and a draw. Comprehensive. Beating Argentina 13-46. That's a big win over there in Argentina. Really ruined my picks, because I picked New Zealand and Argentina to win this weekend. So that was a total waste of time, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'm surprised that you picked Argentina to win, mate.
I was hoping. I was thinking that they'd had an extra week's gap. They would be a bit more rested. But at the end of the day, this is looking like games too far for this Argentinian side, isn't it? They're looking just too tired. They don't have the depth to rotate during the Super Season. They don't have the depth now from having only one team plus a few European players to rotate either. And these guys looking dead on their feet. They're going to need. They got one more game this weekend, and then they're going to need that break of 3 or 4 weeks, whatever it is, before the Rugby World Cup to get rested, don't they?
Look, at the end of the day, I think Argentina should basically send over a C team. There's no value in them actually getting pummeled again over in South Africa. So we might as well just send over a C team. Yep. What is the benefit? What is the benefit to Argentina to actually go and play the game this weekend?
Yeah, there isn't any. You're right.
There isn't any. The only and we'll come to this a bit later, is to basically they risk having an Anscombe.
Absolutely, yes. He's not the only one either. But yes, he is the biggest profile player to disappear this week anyway. So yes, they are risking an Anscombe. You are quite right. South Africa very, very well played. Got themselves in the lead, kept themselves in the lead. And then forcing Argentina to basically chase the game in that second half. Argentina would have picked up more points through the boots and would have kicked more penalties, I think, if they'd been anywhere closer. But South Africa did the right thing, got themselves far enough ahead that Argentina had to chase the game. And once you've got that scoreboard pressure against you, it's really difficult to come back from.
Yeah. So you think South Africa learnt from the All Blacks of a couple of years ago and giving away smart penalties?
I wouldn't be surprised.
Just a term that you threw in there during the week.
This is another that. Yes, we've been talking about dumb penalties and smart penalties.
Dumb penalty, yeah.
It's something that we've talked about on this. I think we've talked about on this show a few times. We definitely talked in private quite a few times about that kind of concept. Yep, and but this South Africa side now, a very good pack. I mean, Marks was on the bench this weekend, so got depth as well. Henri Pollard at last is showing the kind of the kind of form that he promised as an under-20. I mean, he was the under-20s player of the tournament a few years ago. Obviously missed the whole season with a shoulder injury, but now looks to be, I'm not going to say back to his best, but at the best he's ever been, and he's really bossing that team around.
Yeah, absolutely. He's running the show, and even with our friend Mr. Stain on the bench, who's obviously ready to come on should things go a bit pear-shaped, really hasn't been required at all, because Pollard has just been basically making the right calls, taking the right options.
Stain's hands though, that try in the second half, that was yes, not suitable for work. That was wonderful hands.
Hey, one thing interesting with Marks on the bench, and some of the South African fans and supporters actually saying, yeah, look, that's the right combination. Their starting hooker is actually probably playing better than Marks. So that's some of the comment. I'll be honest, I only seen highlights and not even much of the highlights of the game on the weekend. But just going through the comments that the fans are posting up and sort of saying it's great, sort of the starting hooker is actually out probably performing better than Marks, but to have that dynamic Malcolm Marks on the bench to come on with 20-30 minutes to go actually works for them as well.
Probably reminds you of Cody Taylor and Dane Coles.
Mind you, the interesting thing there was that, that's the current situation you're talking about, really, because you go back before Dane Coles' bad injury, and he started, and then you basically had Cody Taylor coming on for 5 minutes to earn a Test jersey that he can hang up on the wall.
Yes, but he's great. But just like we there was talk at one point basically about who's the best hooker in the world, well, it's Coles or Marks. Now Marks isn't the best hooker in South Africa. Coles obviously got that injury, has come back, and while he's been away, Cody Taylor's really stepped up. So it's kind of it's
the worm has turned.
The worm has turned. Yes, exactly. So South Africa looking really dangerous, and they also got a decent set of backs as well out there. Whether LaRue's fully up to speed, having sort of played in Japan. You've got to sort of question whether he's fully up to speed really, and needs a bit of game time. But apart from that, they're looking terribly. They're looking really dangerous. Making that first game on the first game of their first game of the Rugby World Cup, or the fourth game of the Rugby World Cup between New Zealand and South Africa, is just looking more and more juicy and more important to the whole tournament. The more rugby we see played.
Now, look, I think it is an important game. All the top matchups in the pool games will be important matchups. But look, I think it's a case of you go back to 2015 and going into the tournament, it's All Blacks are favourites, and sort of apart from the semi-final against South Africa, did it quite comfortably. But even that South African semi-final, it didn't look like they were going to lose. This time round, realistically, even with the way that South Africa's playing, you've got a handful, half a dozen teams that are now looking like they can take it out. And the other thing you've got to realise is the Rugby World Cup, the best team at the tournament doesn't always win. Actually, we go back and analyse it. How many times has the best team at the tournament won? Bounce of the ball, we're all talking about it. A refereeing decision's going to decide this World Cup. And so, there's a lot of factors to go in there, and it's even as well as South Africa's playing, I think there's about 16, and we go through them. Obviously, the All Blacks, Ireland, England, Wales, South Africa, and now after this last week, Australia, they back it up again this week at Eden Park. Even if they lose, but if they keep it close, then Australia's in the game. You throw in some real wild cards in the Fiji. They would have been a bit annoyed about Australia's performance on the weekend. But you could throw in like a Fiji as well. I mean, so you've got a lot of teams that are actually putting their hand up to saying that they could go in there. So look, even if South Africa or the All Blacks drop that first game, their first pool game, I think the tournament itself is going to be one of the tightest tournaments ever, if not the tightest ever.
There are, but see, if I go into some more detail on one of my Patreon for your ears only videos that I've done recently, which is who are realistic winners of the Rugby World Cup. So go if you are a member, go and check out that video. You can go and support patreon.com/DrivingMaul to get that video. But basically, the problem, the reason I'm saying that game is so crucial, is whoever loses that game goes into the same half of the draw as Ireland and Wales. And suddenly you've got 3 out of the top 4 teams in the world in one half of the draw. That suddenly becomes difficult.
But then the other side of the draw, you're going to look at obviously England, who beat Wales on the weekend, and it was a second string England side that plays a full strength Welsh side. So yeah, are the Welsh guys being thrashed too much leading into the competition? I mean, we've heard about all the fitness work that they've been doing. Well, I was really surprised at that result over the weekend. I mean, obviously they tried a few things.
Absolutely. I mean, so let's move on to that game. That's a game that I was looking at. So my initial prediction, I think, was England by 5 because England were at home. Then I saw the lineups come out and I was like, "Oh my word, we're going to get beat." Well, I've got my.
He's got his white jersey on.
White jersey on underneath.
Hey.
Sorry, it's too cold for me to take the hoodie off.
A jersey, he just hasn't been in the sun.
It's just too cold. Yeah, that's what. Yes, that's right. So there's me thinking, oh right, we're in for we're in for some trouble here. It finished 33-19. Now, let's be honest. We had the overthrow by Wales, which Luke Cowan-Dickie then caught and just walked over and put down. So not all the tries were through England's necessarily good play for the whole time. There was definitely a bit of rustiness there from Wales around some of their execution. I was very surprised by that by that result. But I mean, the biggest issue for Wales isn't really the result, but the fact they've lost Gareth Anscombe for the tournament. Now, there's a whole bunch of people in New Zealand, especially, who will be going, why are they bringing back players like Nick White? He wasn't very good before he left Australia. Why are they bringing back James Okoye? He wasn't very good when he left Australia. My word, why is England picking Thomas Francis? He was useless over here. Why? And Hines wasn't very good either. Why would Wales want Gareth Anscombe? He was useless. Now remember, guys, Gareth Anscombe left in 2014. He's had 5 years to improve his game. He isn't the same player he was when he left, folks. Same for Willie Hines. Willie Hines has been away for years. These guys have been away. They're improved. They're much better players now than they were. Would they make?
Yeah, look, and to be fair, I'm not sure who's throwing those sort of comments out there as the fact is that why would you want a Gareth Anscombe? Because it was an unfortunate set of circumstances that Gareth Anscombe ended up leaving New Zealand. Really, I don't think
is that some sort of HBO TV series? An unfortunate set of circumstances.
HBO, do they still exist? Showing your age. But no, I'm sort of thinking
they made Game of Thrones and stuff. That was HBO.
Oh, sorry, my bad. I don't know. Game of Thrones. I watch rugby.
Oh, sorry. Go on. Anyway, sorry. Talk about rugby.
Yeah, but look, he was a good player that, as I said, through a set of circumstances, ended up in Wales playing over there. He was never a bad player. Willie Hines, never a bad player. He was stuck behind starting All Black halfbacks in type scenario and that sort of thing. So when he was playing for the Crusaders and did well. I suppose we get a bit surprised when their name pops up and it's just like someone coming from this part of the world is breaking into a Welsh squad or an English squad. And you sort of think, you naturally sort of think, there'd be players over there that would be in the development system that would be coming through or whatever. I think it's more of a surprise that the players getting picked up from a New Zealand development system coming through, as opposed to the fact that they're weak or not good enough sort of thing.
There have been some comments, but yeah, I get what you're saying. The England have got it's. I'm not sure what Eddie Jones is up to. Let's be honest. That was Willie Hines' first cap for England. now he's been named as one of 2 scrum halves going through Rugby World Cup. I
think you should emphasise that, Paul. 2.
Yes, one of 2 scrum halves going through the Rugby World Cup. He will be on the bench. He will be playing, and he's got 1 cap. Now, I understand that. I'm sorry, my French isn't good enough to understand your comments in the live chat. Thank you, everyone who is in the live chat, by the way, folks. But we then have. Okay, fine. I get it that we've got injuries at what do you call it, at hooker. Hence, we've got the third choice hooker hasn't got much experience. That I can understand. But why England have got players like Ludlow or Ludlam, who, again, next to no experience. Even Curry, Underhill, whilst I think they're really good and they're there, haven't got much experience. So for those players that are there doesn't seem much planning around this squad. Thomas Francis was brought in a couple of years ago, had a couple of games, then has been out of the squad for the last year. Suddenly he's back in it again. Now, I understand that Ben Teo and Mike Brown had a fight, and hence that's why they got dropped, allegedly. Sorry, before I get sued. There's 5, at least 5 players here who are kind of bolters in an England squad going to Rugby World Cup. To me, that's 3 or 4 too many.
So, and George Ford, I believe, is the backup halfback.
So they're taking two scrum halves, 2 fly halves, and they can still only fit in 5 props.
What?
Now, part of that is they're taking 6 back 3 players, which is more than you'd expect. But one of those players is Jack Nowell, who's injured, and hence they're actually taking they're taking an injured player to the Rugby World Cup on the grounds that he'll be well enough come the playoff stages. Which now he is a British and Irish Lion. Don't get me wrong, but wow, carrying a player like that who isn't even certain to play and have him in your squad is. I'm a Jack Nowell fan. I think he's a fantastic player, but taking injured players into Rugby World Cup is not. I'm not sure it's a very clever idea.
No, not at all. Not at all. And I think it was 99. The All Blacks did that, carrying a injured player, and basically, you're just robbing yourself of a fully fit player. When you look at, you might look at it sort of like a Brodie Retallick, let's say, in our scenario, and you obviously try and leave it as long as possible, and if he's close, you might then take him along. You're talking about a World Rugby Player of the Year type scenario, and I know you've said now is a British and Irish Lion, but he's an outside back, and to be fair, outside backs are pretty dime a dozen. Getting a rock star forward is slightly different. You might try and carry a slightly broken forward, but I don't see a point in carrying a slightly broken back.
Now, I'm just going to bring up on screen for people who are watching the video a list of some of the players that aren't going to the Rugby World Cup.
But Chris has already done it.
Yeah, Chris has done it. I'm putting it on screen for people.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, some of them here: Danny Cipriani, Alex Good, Mike Brown, Chris Ashton, Danny Solomona, Ben Teo, Alex Lozowski, Ollie DeVito, Denny Kerr, Ben Spencer, Dan Robinson, Harry Williams, Ben Moon, Dylan Hartley. Dylan Hartley's injured, to be fair. Chris Robshaw. Now, all of those guys have been capped. Nathan Hughes also been capped. Dom Armand hasn't been, to be fair. Sam Simmons, he's been injured all season, to be fair, again. Alex Dombrandt, also not very, is not experienced. But in that first lot, there are a lot of players there who have picked up serious caps, who have just been cast aside at the last minute. And yeah, it's amazing how they've come up with those. With some of the selections that he has selected.
And we've forgotten our Highlanders, our Hurricanes friend there. My mind's gone blank.
Oh, Brad Shields.
Brad Shields. Yes.
To be fair, again, he's injured. That's the only reason he's not going.
Oh, is it?
Yep.
Okay. Well, because Eddie was talking about the fact that they've spoken to the players on why they're not made it, and he was one of the players he was referring to. I've spoken to Brad.
Oh, okay. I thought he was injured. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think he's fit. So
Sorry.
now he'd be sort of thinking, well, I might have made the All Black squad for 2019.
Well, looking at the 6 options, yes. He would have been
run off to South Africa to play a game for England.
He would have been in the depth chart for the on our airplane spreadsheet if he'd stayed in New Zealand. That's for certain. So yes, some of those players, you are right, Chris. Those players would be walking into other squads, and players like Harry Williams. How he is not going, and Dan Cole is. Wow, that's beggars belief. So yes, a very good, very good. But then again, I say, none of us saw that performance coming from England against Wales this weekend. So maybe, just maybe, Eddie Jones has got this has got things going the right way. You've got
it's all started going the right way since John Mitchell joined up, though.
Oh, absolutely! Yeah, so it's the Kiwi influence again. Get an All Black coach in. That's what we need.
It's the journey. It's all about the journey.
But for those of us, yes, I have been openly sceptical about Eddie Jones. But Rich Freeman made a very good point. Here's a guy that took Australia to the Rugby World Cup final and lost to England in 2003. Mm-hmm. Was part of the South African team in 2007 that went all the way to Rugby World Cup final and won. So 2 teams need to take two. Gone.
And you forgot about the big one, the part of the Japanese team that tipped over the South Africans in a pool game.
Exactly. So I think he has lost something like 2 Rugby World Cup games, the final to England and a game to Scotland, and that's pretty much it. He's only, I think that's right. In 3 tournaments, that's pretty impressive.
So just interesting comment by Stacey in the old chat room there. So although the Rugby World Cup squad's been named, it might not actually be the final announcement.
Well, officially he doesn't have to submit it yet, does he? So
right.
These things can change. If there's any injuries, clearly it'll change.
Sure.
If someone, and he can, in theory, he could be pulling some wool over some people's eyes, and suddenly we'll be having a Ben Spencer, Danny Cipriani axis at the Rugby World Cup. You never know. But I think that's pretty close to what. Well, I'd be surprised if he was playing games, but there definitely could be injuries, replacements.
You wouldn't want. I mean, yeah, exactly. I'd be surprised if you're playing games because you don't want to mess with players' heads, do you? In that manner. Realistically speaking, I mean, a guy thinks that he's out of the mix unless, like you said, he's had chats with all these players. Unless he's sort of alluded to the fact to those players. If he hasn't, you wouldn't want to mess with their heads like that.
No, I don't think so. The other game that was up there was Ireland beat Italy 29-10. Danny Carberry got himself injured in that game. It's not clear as to how long he's going to be out for as well. So, yeah, I've already said, very sad for Gareth Anscombe, who's out. If another player like that goes as well, that would also be sad. So, yes, so suddenly Ireland looking around going, ooh, what are our Johnny Sexton backup options? Because Danny Carberry has really grown into that role really well.
Well, I mean, as you say, look, at the moment, obviously you've got Anscombe out. Carberry's a question mark. You got Brodie Retallick's a question mark. So it's
Talupe Faletau's gone as well for Wales.
Yeah, that's right. Faletau, a few weeks. Yep, that's right. So I mean, it's not like they're fringe squad members that are going. These are sort of starting members. I mean, Carberry obviously on the bench, I'm guessing, for Ireland.
Yep.
But more than just a bench player, isn't he? So you've got some high caliber players that are starting to get injured just before the tournament starting.
Yeah, which is really sad.
Yeah, absolutely.
We want to see the best teams playing with the best players at the best tournament is what we want.
The best of the best of the best.
Yeah, absolutely. You're making it sound like some MMA competition. So yeah, Ireland, yeah, well done, beating Italy. Again, not a first choice Ireland team. The turn them over. But yeah, I think pretty much what we expected. I predicted Ireland by 20. They won by 19. Yep. I'm not sure we've learned anything about either Ireland or Italy from that game.
Because if you go back Six Nations, Ireland are starting to come off the boil a bit, weren't they, in terms of the Six Nations competition? It's just like, the players, things just don't seem to be working for Ireland as they were, say, a year ago, when they were basically very strong in the forwards and laying a fantastic foundation. The backs were doing their jobs adequately, but I think it was just their forwards that were really laying that foundation. And then in the Six Nations this year, things have gone not so well, and progressively I felt got worse.
Yep, and so I think that they're one of the teams that need a few games to get themselves clicking again. Schmidt famously runs a complex, particularly attacking structure with Ireland, and it relies a lot on, or has historically relied a lot on, Jenny Sexton, and you could see him during the Six Nations as getting more and more frustrated as things just weren't working. So you can kind of see that. They're one of those teams that I think could do with a good couple of games. They've got England coming up, which will be an interesting one in a couple of weeks' time.
Well, do you think England will roll out a full strength squad for that game?
What is the full strength team now? Is it the one that took it to the just beat Wales, or is it?
Oh, touche.
As I said, I've already pointed out that I don't understand Eddie Jones's thinking from putting a squad together. So yeah, I'm not sure I understand when he is and when he isn't going to pick. Historically, when teams have picked their first choice team and their second against the B team and vice versa, the travelling team has turned up with the B team and the home team has played their A team. Now, that's not what happened at the weekend. England mixed it up a bit and Wales had pretty much a full strength side. So it's there seems to be a lot of those kind of rules have been thrown out the window.
And they missed out on their number one sort of rugby team in the world title.
They did, absolutely. And a lot of people are saying, oh, Wales were number one for one day. No, they weren't, because officially it only gets updated once a week on a Monday. And so Wales never quite made it.
Not only that, but Wales actually needed to get points, ranking points out of the game to go ahead, I thought.
I thought they just needed not to lose. They either draw or win.
Yeah, but they needed to get those points out of the game to be able to get it, because you get ranking points, as I believe it.
From a not from a draw, I wouldn't have thought.
No. Well, you must get points from a draw as well, because you get points for the amount that you lose by. So if you draw it away, surely that's worth something versus drawing at home.
Oh, we'll have to go away and investigate this now. I'm not sure, but yes. Either way, Wales didn't do that. In the run-up to the 2003 Rugby World Cup, I thought it was good that England lost one of their warm-up games to France. It was when they played their B team against France's A team, but also it removed any question marks around
cakewalk.
Well, no, pressure of you've got the longest ever winning streak. Do you want to maintain that? And that extra pressure during the Rugby World Cup and people talking about it. So in some ways, Wales losing this game or losing a game in the run-up isn't, and breaking that winning streak isn't necessarily such a bad idea, because it removes any talk of you've got the longest winning streak ever. You're going to get 18 again to equal New Zealand and England. How do you think about that? And just keep their minds on what actually matters, which is just winning the Rugby World Cup.
Absolutely.
So from that point of view, Also, I was listening to one podcast or something where people were saying, look, Wales have been very nicely flying under the radar up until this point. Sure, they were Six Nations champions, and sure, they've reached second in the world, but they've done it rather quietly. While everyone's been paying attention to Ireland, who have beaten New Zealand recently. Everyone's sort of paying attention to England because Eddie Jones is such a loudmouth. And they did go through that really good streak for 2 years in 2016-17. So Wales have gone about it nice and quietly, not had that pressure, not had that limelight, and to a certain extent, losing this game again also removes that as well.
Yeah, I mean, when we talk about those rankings and that, one thing that I always feel though is that to get to number one without playing the previous number one or beating the previous number one has you have question marks around the ranking system when that can happen, sort of thing, I suppose.
Well, but Wales haven't had the opportunity to play New Zealand to beat them.
Yeah,
they didn't play them. So how you say, okay, you're not allowed to become number one until then? Talking of world rankings, let's have a quick look through and what has changed this week. So New Zealand's still number one on 89.04 points, with Wales number two on 88.89 points. So that's a gap of 15?
Mm-hmm.
0.15. So yeah, that's very, very close. Hasn't been that close for a long time. Ireland are also very close there as well. England moved above South Africa, so now England number 4 in the world, and South Africa moved down to number 5. Even though South Africa beat Argentina, England beating Wales, they beat a higher ranked team, so therefore they gained some points. If Australia beat New Zealand, in my mind, Australia are number 1. I'm not so sure about that. Japan.
Is Joshua from Australia?
Yes, I think he is.
How do we work that one out?
A couple of other movements. Japan, and we should really talk about Japan. Japan have been playing some fantastic rugby in the Pacific Nations Cup. So they beat the USA at the weekend quite comfortably. And that sees them move up 2 places, number 9 in the world, ahead of Fiji and Argentina, who both now slipped down to 10th and 11th respectively. The final movement is because the United States lost to Japan, they drop a point, drop 1 place to 14th, and Italy, even though they lost to Ireland, climb 1 place to 13th. So 2 teams that lost there switching round in the rankings.
See, that's why I still think that you'd get something for a draw depending on who you played and where you played, because if you've got some points for losing a game, how can you not get points for drawing a game?
Well, no, it's not that you've got points for losing, it's that you've lost less points than the other team lost.
Yeah.
If you see what I mean.
Actually, one thing was interesting, and obviously the ranking chart from World Rugby's website doesn't. I don't think I can see it. It doesn't show how many points the All Blacks dropped, because it would have been good to know how many. Because I think they were sitting on about 91 ranking points before the game. I think I could be totally wrong on that, but that's would be interesting to know how many points they dropped. Yeah,
it would be interesting. I don't know what the points change has been. Josh, Japan are not going to win the Rugby World Cup. The chief of the World Cup is looking so good.
Josh had a few drinks on the weekend after the win, and so he's still got the hangover.
And this is definitely the closest Rugby World Cup we've seen for a long time. Yeah, absolutely. Interesting. So we've got, just looking at the rankings here, the top 16 teams in the world will be going to the Rugby World Cup. Spain and Romania in 17th and 18th won't be going because they fielded ineligible players during the qualification. Then Uruguay and Russia, Canada in 19th, 20th and 21st will go. And then finally Namibia in 23rd. Portugal in 22nd don't get to go, obviously, because they were a European side. Joshua asks, what happens if Japan wins the World Cup and the chief says we all drink Asahi for a year? Absolutely, that sounds like a plan. Oh dear. So Namibia in 23rd in the world will be the lowest ranked team at the Rugby World Cup this year. So yes, congratulations to Japan for beating the USA in that one. Fiji got up over Samoa after losing to Japan in the opening round, and then beating. And losing. Who did they beat? They beat. Gone blank now. Who they played in the second game? But anyway, do you? They just got up over Samoa this weekend, and the score was. Where is the score gone? The score was 10-3. So not an amazing. New Zealand were 9.154 points. Thank you, Joshua. So, do you think have Fiji slipped back a bit from November? I say losing to Japan, only just getting up over Samoa, not the most convincing of wins. I'm
it's hard to know, isn't it? Because I mean, we don't know what structures. Well, not structures. What have they been trialing some of the players? And and with the way that Fiji had been travelling, you'd sort of think, well, they've still got to try out their combinations and stuff like that to see if a big combination might work better. So we don't know at this point in time whether they have been trying that sort of thing out. I think come Rugby World Cup time, they will be basically targeting Australia, I guess. So they'll lift. I think you'll see a performance along the lines of what they put in against France last year. I think they're better than France when they played France last year. So, although look, I mean they didn't win the Pacific Nations Cup, I still think Fiji will be an interesting team to watch and follow at Rugby World Cup time.
Yes, definitely. And then also the last Pacific Nations Cup game of the weekend was Tonga beating Canada 33-23. So what appears to be, I've not seen that game, but what appears to be defending optional for their last game.
I saw parts of that actually live, and Canada actually had most of the running, most of the position, etc. They just weren't able to complete their opportunities basically and take their opportunities, whereas Tonga with the ball that they did have were converting their opportunities into points.
So just the Rugby World Cup warm-ups will continue this coming weekend. Obviously, maybe not obviously, but we do have New Zealand versus Australia, so the second Bledisloe Cup game, that's at Eden Park. We've also got South Africa hosting Argentina, so the reverse of those games from last weekend. Also, a whole bunch of other teams get in on the axe this weekend. So Italy will be hosting Russia. You'd expect Italy to be a bit better against Russia than they did against Ireland. France will be playing Scotland, so that's kind of an interesting one to see where those two are at. Where's my other games gone? There's more games than that because Wales playing England. That's right. It looks like Ireland don't have a game next weekend. As well. So Wales also. Yeah. So lots of games going on for that. Joshua is excited for Georgia versus Russia. I think that's a Georgia win all day long. Whilst I understand there are political undertones to that game.
Careful, we got that last hit removed on you.
So those are the games this coming weekend. Ones that I would say to watch. Obviously, the Bledisloe Cup 2 is going to be a massive game, with Australia having the chance to win the Bledisloe Cup for the first time in a long time. Wales versus England. How will Wales bounce back from that result against England? Can England actually put two good games together? We'll see. And France Scotland, I think, will also be a decent, an interesting game to see where those two are at. France, obviously, with England and Argentina. Scotland with Ireland and Japan as far as Rugby World Cup pools go. Obviously, there are other teams, but those are the sort of ones that matter. And after Japan have put in those three good performances, I think Scotland have been put on notice, and we're looking to see can they make some sort of statement going into that Rugby World Cup. I think that's most of the hot news, most of the topics that I didn't write down as a list for us to talk about.
I was just going to bring up. It looks like Joshua was going to be putting the house on the Wallabies this weekend. Wow. Now okay. I was going to mention something actually, and I brought it up. So it's a few weeks away yet. It's not. What's the date now? So we're about 3 weeks away. It's the 31st when the NRC starts in Australia. And the reason I brought that up is the fact is that obviously in the last 2 weeks leading, up to now, is the chat around the new laws that they're going to be trialling in their competition. Because I believe they're going to be trialling them in the NRC. Is the nothing tackling above the waist and that sort of thing.
Now, there's a whole bunch of laws now, and I don't think all of them have been trialled in all the places. So,
Right.
In France, where they've had some serious problems around this, they've decided to go the whole hog, and in Pro Div 2, they're going to have no tackling, tackling below the waist only, and also only one-man tackling, so not two-man tackling.
I missed that one. I didn't know that. Okay. So we're looking at some basketball games happening there, aren't we?
Offloading will become, yes, absolutely, de rigueur, the way to play. So that's really good. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to hear how that goes. Now, in the Rugby Championship last year, they trialled beneath the nipple line, I think it was, for tackling, and it actually ended up, and they pulled the trial out after a few weeks because they ended up with more concussions than they had before.
This is This is the argument I've had on Twitter as well, and with people is that they're going, people coming along saying, "Oh, this is just stupid. They're ruining the game of rugby by introducing." And this is like people go, "Oh, but we're having so many concussions. Have you not seen what's happening in the NFL with the, when they've cut the brains open and the amount of damage, etc." And it's just like what these people that are so concerned about the players don't realise is the tackler that's getting the concussions. And now we're telling them to tackle down lower where the hard parts of the body are, the hips and the knees, which move. And a moving knee is more force to a head than a moving torso. So you're actually putting the tackler in a more dangerous position than what you were previously by them tackling slightly higher. All you're doing is cutting out the head-high tackles to the tacklee, for want of a term, which is actually not causing a massive amount of concussion. The massive amount of concussions is coming from contact from head on head, where the two players go low and go around and hit each other from the same team. Head on hip and head on knee is where you get the majority of concussions happening.
Yes, Nocturnal writes the problems up front for the All Blacks. Yes, there were problems up front, and we'll spend a whole hour talking about that tomorrow night on the All Blacks edition. No, we are not going to shy away from the problems that the All Blacks have had. I have a whole show dedicated to just talking about All Blacks, and that's where we'll do that. Yes, you're right. You're right in the fact that if head on hip and head on knee can definitely lead to concussions. What the stats say, apparently, is that the tacklee, the ball carrier, is more likely to get concussed than the tackler currently. But
that's what the stats are showing.
Pardon?
Consistently, more often, it's the tackler that's actually getting concussed.
Well, this is what the
okay.
What I heard recently. Anyway, it's going to be interesting to see what the outcome of these trials are. I'm not anti them being trialled. Let's see how it goes. I'm definitely not one that says that the game has gone soft by any stretch of the imagination. It has not gone soft.
Well, we know it's not gone soft because they're trying these rules.
Yep.
The new laws is because the game is not soft.
And I am getting to the stage. I think I probably asked you this question probably about 6 months ago, and I think probably it's one we need to get back. One we might need to look at again is.
Hang on, I'll just open up the bottom drawer and get that answer back out again.
Are we getting to a stage where the professional and the amateur games are so different that we need different laws for them?
Look, yes. The answer is yes. But the fact is that it's not huge masses of differences in laws. They'll just be slight variances. I mean, one of the other sports that I follow and involved with is cricket, and you do have different laws from junior cricket, even at senior cricket level, at club level, through to internationals. The rules are slightly different, and they're not massively different, and the adjustment's not hard to make. So yes, that's a real obvious thing. There can be changes. We want to see the game sped up. And the reality is that the scrum. Let's take scrums for example. Back to scrums for example. an amateur level, you do want to take your time to make sure that the scrum is set properly. And I'm not saying you don't want a professional level, but what we've got at a professional level is people that are much more skilled and understand their roles and what they're doing. So you could actually speed the game up a bit more in terms of the engagement process at a professional level and still have a very slow engagement process at an amateur level.
Yep. I think also perhaps with the around these tackle heights as well, that whilst I think it might be needed, some of these things might be needed at the professional level, I'm not sure they're needed at the amateur level.
Yeah, or vice versa. There's things that obviously the stats when the guys the guys with glasses on and the propellers on the top of their head sit down and go through all the footage, and they can actually ascertain, okay, in amateur game, where's the injuries, where's the concussions happen, and when the professional game, where do the concussions happen? Maybe it's the same, maybe it's not, but they can then actually, there's no reason why you couldn't have separate laws for amateur and professional and juniors, which they do.
Well, for juniors, I think they already do, yes. I mean, you have no tackling, all that kind of stuff either.
Yeah. Oh, and then, you start off at ripper and then you slowly progress to tackle.
Yep. I think whether Wales wake up. Sorry, answering Batman's question in the chat. Who thinks Wales will wake up next week? Whether they do or not, they definitely will be woken up when it comes to the Rugby World Cup.
Sorry, I missed that. I was just reading something. I apologise. Say that again. Sorry.
He says, "Who thinks Wales will wake up next week?" So if they're not woken next week, Gatland will have them awake in time for the Rugby World Cup. So I'm not worried about them suddenly not being a competitor. They're still one of the top teams come Rugby World Cup time.
You're going to think some of these teams with losing their key players are more going to be nervous about not getting injured.
Yeah.
In these warm-up games. We've already alluded to All Blacks with a Retallick, now Wales with the Anscombe backing up with a Faletau and Carberry for Ireland. So there's key players and that are key players that are really important to these teams getting injured and out of the World Cup. The players will be going in nervous, and that's dangerous.
It is. Did you see the Counties game at the weekend?
I did see parts of the Counties game, and I wasn't picking my nose, just brushing it. I did see parts of it again. Yeah,
so one of the things so Sonny Bill Williams, for those of you that aren't aware, has been sent back to province to get some game time before coming back into the All Blacks. We expect him to start this weekend and be involved in the Bledisloe Cup too. But one of the things I noticed, I've seen him several times this year. I said this last night actually. Was I've seen him play some club rugby for Ponsonby. I've seen him play the Kirikiri in a pre-season game for the Mitre 10 Cup level, and then I watched the game on TV last night. I was at those other two games. The thing that struck me differently about him last night was he really was carrying the ball much more forcefully at the line. He was heading into contact with much more intent. And I think what we saw was, there was a player who's come back from injury and was a little bit scared initially in the club game and in a pre-season game about getting injured again. He's only played 30 games in the last 3 years, which is about the same as a player in Europe will play in one season. So he's played hardly any rugby since the last Rugby World Cup.
Yeah.
I think it's taken him a few games, and this weekend it was the first time we saw him back to something like his something like his best. Mm-hmm. Josh, will the All Blacks go half at Eden Park or go all out for the decider? If the All Blacks lose this weekend at Eden Park, there will be a week of national mourning in New Zealand. The players and the coaches will get absolutely ripped to shreds in the press. There is no way the All Blacks are going anything other than 100% for this weekend's game. Losing for the first time in something like 2 decades at Eden Park, giving up the Bledisloe Cup for the first time in something like 15 years, whatever it is, those are out of the question for the All Blacks. There's people even been talking about the fact that Hansen might get sacked if he loses that game. It's not. I don't think it is true.
He's not going to get sacked.
He's not going to get sacked. I don't think so. But
one thing. Obviously, this is all for tomorrow's discussion, sort of thing, right? But the reality is that one thing that if the All Blacks don't play well at Eden Park on Saturday night, Ian Foster might as well rip up his CV and his application for the All Blacks job for next year. Because nobody actually thinks outside of New Zealand Rugby Football Union hierarchy, nobody in this country actually thinks that he's actually got the goods as a coach anyway.
Yep. But you're quite right. If he might as well not bother applying. You're right.
Yep. And I'm not talking about just winning; they'll have to win well.
So, yeah, and anyone who thinks that this is just another warm-up game for Rugby World Cup, no.
Put a edge on it.
There'll be a lot of edge on it. I mean, so I think something like 46% in my vote of Wallabies fans would rather win the Bledisloe Cup than win the Rugby World Cup. That's that gives you an idea as to what's on the line this weekend.
Look, I mean, yeah, and from All Blacks fans, I've spoken to a few All Blacks fans, and we've won the last 2 World Cups, so there's not the angst around winning this Rugby World Cup that there has been after not winning it for 20 years type thing, and hearing 4 more years type stuff. So you've won it. So the Bledisloe, as I said, we talked right back at the beginning of the show, is just like there's something about the Bledisloe, and it's just like they'll take holding on to the Bledisloe over the Rugby World Cup.
Yep. Well, folks, if you want to hear Ashwin's Twitter utterances during the week, NZ Fatso is the place to go.
And tell your friends that live in the Puketababa Mount Roskill area that I'm a local board candidate and to vote for me. So make sure you let them all know that.
Yeah, don't mix sports and politics.
Oops, too late.
So thank you everybody for joining us on the Hash Rugby Chat. This has been episode 101. Yes, we've been going for nearly 2 years now. So the 2-year anniversary will be in like 3 weeks' time. Wow, that's kind of scary. So thank you everybody for joining, dialing in. I've been in this for nearly 2 years now. If you have enjoyed the shows, I would very much appreciate it if you went to patreon.com/DrivingMaul and help support the show with a little bit of cash. You can support from as little as $1 a month, but that really would mean everything to me. And would actually help cover my fuel bills just to get around the Mighty 10 Cup games, for example. So please do, if you've enjoyed these shows and you've got a credit card, then please go ahead and do that. Thank you very much. I'll be back tomorrow night with the All Blacks edition with Michael and Herman. And yes, that's going to be fun. That's going to be a fun digging over the All Blacks performance for an hour. Because we will be digging into the All Blacks more than the Wallabies. We did the Wallabies tonight, and yes, they did very well. Thank you, everybody, and good night.